Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining this call this evening. MARTA is excited to provide you an update of their expansion projects moving forward. And I'd briefly like to introduce myself. My name is Content Terry. I'm a member of the project team and excited to moderate this meeting for you tonight. As a part of our agenda, we will introduce the expansion projects, provide you a little more detail than you've received in the past because it's been a year since we presented in Clayton County. We'll also provide you an opportunity to ask some questions in regards to what you hear this evening, and then also introduce ways in which you can provide us with some additional feedback. This evening, the presenters will include project managers Tracy Roberson, Olin Dowhausen, and Stephanie Roberts. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We are using Zoom webinar. So as you notice at the bottom of your screen, you have these icons. One of which is the Q&A icon. We will allow you to use that portion of this tool to type in your questions as they are presented. And then during the Q&A session, we will uplift your questions. Some questions that we are able to answer immediately. We have subject matter experts that are also on the call that will go ahead and answer them directly in the Q&A session for everyone to view. Also, all of our attendees are muted at this time, and you will not be unmuted. Only the speakers and the subject matter experts will have audio capabilities. So please use your Q&A feature to type in your questions. Next slide. Next slide. All right, at this time, I'd like to start by getting an understanding of who all has joined us this evening. So we have 3 polls that we'll like to launch. So if you'll indulge us and participate, we'd be most appreciative. So let's launch the first poll, please. So we'd like to know, how did you hear about this evening's virtual public meeting? Was it via email, social media, word of mouth, through some type of community communications, like a newsletter? Did you see the signs at the MARTA stations or at the Justice Center? And then if there's any other method in which you've heard. If there's another method, which it seems as though quite a few of you heard through a different form, feel free to use the Q&A feature to type in how you learned about this meeting this evening. So it looks like email, social media, and other were the main ways in which you received communications about this meeting this evening. We only had about 50% of our participants take this poll. Let's give it a couple of more seconds, and then we will launch the results. Okay. So email, social media. So that's great that our digital technology is working for us. All right, can we proceed to our second poll question? How frequently do you ride MARTA? Daily, once or twice a week, weekly, monthly? You never ride it. But that's about to change with this new technology. Okay, so we had a few more responses this time around. So it looks like a large amount of participants this evening currently do not ride MARTA. But again, we're hoping with our new expansion options, we will increase ridership in Clayton County. All right, let's launch the results and proceed with the next poll. And so this last question is asking, how are you affiliated with Clayton County? Do you live in the county? Do you work in the county? Are you a student? Are you retired? Are you a government worker or elected official? And other. If you are an elected official, could you please put your name and the municipality that you represent in the Q&A so that we can acknowledge you? Any elected officials on the call this evening? So the reason we ask these questions, so I personally am responsible for communications and outreach for the expansion projects. And we'd always like to know how people receive the information and the communication that goes out. So we appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions because that gives us a benchmark to shoot for. We know what works, what doesn't work as we move forward in communicating with Clayton citizens in regards to upcoming opportunities to participate in the planning initiatives and learn more about MARTA's plans moving forward. Okay, well, thank you so much for participating. And it looks like majority of those who are on the call live within the county. Thank you again for joining. We hear some background noise. Can the Zoom producer mute everyone, please? Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Project Manager Tracy Roberson.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Content, for getting us started. So excited to be here with the Clayton County residents and all of the MARTA riders and everyone who's a stakeholder and interested in transit in Clayton County. My role tonight is to just give you a quick overview, some background and some history. And then I am going to move it over to Olin, who is a project manager, and Stephanie, who will give you some deep diving details about the mode that's coming to Clayton and the specifics for State Route 54, which is our highlight project of today. But there are several projects moving at one time in Clayton County. And I'd like to share with you very briefly what that looks like. We call this MARTA 2040 for Clayton County. MARTA 2040 is all about expansion. And you have seen some of the expansion get started already in Clayton County as it relates to the projects that you see here. The Transit Center, Transit Hub, Justice Center Transit Hub is already underway. Phase 1 is complete and we're moving into phase 2. We have the multi-purpose operations and maintenance facility. We are in the design mode for that. You will see that come underway in the next couple of years. And then we have the South Lake BRT project. That project is already underway. We're at 15% design for that project. And then the last project you see on the screen, and it is our highlight project for today, is the State Route 54 BRT. So to give you a little bit of a background and history, on how all of these projects came to be. We started MARTA and Clayton together, agreed in 2014 by the approval of the referendum for the 1 cent sales tax. That referendum was the start of this great collaborative relationship between Clayton County and MARTA. We were able to deliver the very first thing coming out of the gate was the bus service that you see on the ground today. And we did that in record time, something that normally takes well over a year. We delivered it to Clayton County in 4 months, which is a super and an amazing accomplishment. And since the initiation of MARTA in Clayton County, there has been a tremendous amount of stakeholder input and engagement with the citizens and the riders to ensure that we are developing the types of projects that is going to enhance service for you and to ensure that we have economic development in the county as well. And so out of all of our early on stakeholder engagement and analysis, 2 alternatives were identified for high capacity in the county. And you saw on the previous screen, I identified those 2. We had the South Lake Bus Rapid Transit, as well as the project we're talking about here today, the State Route 54 Bus Rapid Transit. But to just keep along the timeline, we started our process of planning the South Lake BRT. We've already started the process of planning the operations and maintenance facility. We are well on our way with the Justice Center Mobility Hub. And in the spring of 2021, we did the alternatives analysis for South Lake, which ultimately resulted in the MARTA board adopting Bus Rapid Transit as the locally preferred alternative for the South Lake corridor. We continued to do analysis for State Route 54, and ultimately the MARTA board adopted the high capacity mode for State Route 54 in December of 2022, which is Bus Rapid Transit. So now I will give you a little bit of background about some of these projects, and then I will kick it over to Olin to get into some of the details about the Bus Rapid Transit. So really quickly, again, like I mentioned, we have completed phase 1 of the Justice Center Transit Hub. We are moving along for phase 2. We have made it to 30% design for phase 2. You see renderings here on the screen of what it might look like, the illustration at the top. But the purpose is just to give you a better experience, improving the lighting, improving the seating, making sure there's real-time information, making it just a safer environment for everyone who rides. And the purpose of this hub is that many routes, including the new State Route 54 BRT, will be integrated at this hub. And so there'll be lots of transfers here, and it makes sense to create a better and more improved space. Now, the next project I'd like to share a little bit about is the operations and maintenance facility, which is coming up in Forest Park. So our next slide is on the operations and maintenance facility. We call this facility multi-purpose because, of course, we will maintain our buses here, but we will also have the MARTA police precinct housed at this location as well. It will have a wellness center and plenty of space for administrative and training opportunities. The wonderful thing about bringing the operations and maintenance facility to Clayton County is that it creates jobs within the county. and it has a $3.5 million positive fiscal impact on the city of Forest Park. So we are super excited about the maintenance facility, and you will see this maintenance facility in the year of 2026. Now with this, I'd like to ask Olin, if you will, if you can share a little bit about the South Lake Bus Rapid Transit and then move us on into the presentation. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tracy. I'm Olin Dalehausen. I'm the MARTA project manager for the South Lake Bus Rapid Transit. And so the proposed South Lake BRT is serving the western part of Clayton County. So it runs from the current College Park MARTA station, connects in with the city of Riverdale, and then over to the east, terminating at the South Lake Mall area. And in between, we pick up a number of housing complexes, apartments, and also the Southern Regional Medical Center, which is the biggest hospital on the south side of Atlanta. So the South Lake BRT will have a number of features that improve the service. We'll have transit signal prioritization, which means that the bus will be allowed, it'll hold green lights for the vehicle and help it pass faster. And it also means it isn't stuck in traffic at an intersection waiting for folks to turn. Our project status, we're currently at 15% design and progressing to the 30% design milestone, which is an important milestone for us at MARTA, because that means it leaves planning and goes to infrastructure, where it really gets into the implementation process. And we're preparing to apply to the capital investment grant process, which is where we request federal money to help us out to build the project. That's very important. This is a big transit investment in Clayton County, and MARTA can't do it on our own. We will need our federal partners to put up some money. So we'll be applying to that program this August. Next slide, please. I'm excited to introduce MARTA Rapid, which is the new branding for all of MARTA's enhanced services, which are essentially rail-like services on rubber tires. Next slide, please. So this is the new MARTA Rapid logo. Our marketing folks put a lot of time and effort into coming up with this, and so this branding will be on all of our Rapid lines. Next slide, please. I'll tell you a little bit about what MARTA Rapid is. It's a high-quality transit system that delivers fast and efficient services. So we'll see 10 to 15-minute peak frequencies. So that means a vehicle will be arriving at a station every 10 to 15 minutes. So it'll dramatically cut wait times over what's out there today. The stations will have a number of amenities that improve the rider experience. It will have dedicated operating lanes in congested areas, so that helps the bus to bypass congestion. It'll help it keeps it moving. Not only are you not waiting in congestion, but it also increases the schedule reliability, so buses will be showing up when they're supposed to, and it reduces late buses. And as I mentioned, we'll have unique transit line and vehicle branding, which will be the MARTA Rapid branding, which I just showed you. So in addition to Clayton County, we've got 2 lines in Clayton County and also several others throughout the region that will all connect with the existing heavy rail system. The first one just had a groundbreaking last Thursday. That's the Summerhill BRT, or I'm sorry, Summerhill Rapid. Next will be the South Lake Rapid, followed by SR-54 Rapid, Campbellton, and also 2 other projects that will be advancing, the Clifton Rapid and also Georgia 400 Rapid. So consistent with the branding implementation, each MARTA Rapid line will have its own color, so it'll be very similar to the rail system and very obvious on the maps that this is an improved service that works like a rail. It's a fixed route, so that route is always there and folks can always expect to go to the same destination. Next slide, please. And there's a number of reasons that MARTA Rapid is important to Clayton County. As I've mentioned, It's a high capacity service that will integrate with the rail network, which will help to provide mobility and transportation connectivity, not just within Clayton County, but also to the Atlanta region through the rail network. We can build it faster than rail. We also have more flexible route options. So if things change or a new development goes in, we're able to address that in real time without having to redo a major investment. The MARTA Rapid can lead to economic and workforce development and upward mobility. So as I mentioned, the routes are fixed and the stations are fixed. So we anticipate there will be economic development around the stations that can take the form of housing, commercial districts, and all kinds of other jobs. So the Rapid improves quality of life by reducing transportation costs and avoiding traffic congestion. The dedicated lanes and transit signal priority are a big part of getting around the traffic congestion and keeping the vehicles moving. And it also provides an opportunity to improve surrounding infrastructure around the stations in the line. We can do pedestrian improvements. We can address stormwater issues. There's a lot of opportunities to not just build dedicated lanes and stations, but also to address some other issues. Next slide, please. So MARTA Rapid stations will include substantial amenities beyond what our standard bus shelters. The whole idea is to increase rider comfort, make it a more pleasant experience, and also expedite the boarding process so folks can get on the vehicle quickly and it's not stuck waiting at the station. So amenities will include real-time arrival trains, real-time arrival screens so that you can see when the next vehicle is about to arrive and where it's going. Off-board ticket sales and collection, which is our fancy way of saying Breeze card vending machines. And another key part of this is you pay your fare ahead of time. So when the vehicle arrives, you just step right on it. Very similar to the train, instead of having to wait in line and pay fares and search your pockets for change like the local bus. Well, stations will also have a level boarding platform, also similar to the rail system. So it'll be a straight walk onto the vehicle or a roll in a wheelchair. And each station will include shelters, benches, trash cans, bike racks, and enhanced pedestrian facilities. And I've talked a lot about what MARTA Rapid will be and what the stations will look like. And I just want to say MARTA Rapid is new to the Atlanta region and Clayton County specifically. However, other systems have been built in other parts of the country, and MARTA took the Clayton elected officials, stakeholders, members of our community advisory board, and other officials on a trip to Indianapolis, where they have implemented a rapid system to see what it's like, what it can be, and how it can benefit the community. So we put together a highlight video, and I'll let you see that and hear your officials tell it in their own words, their experience in Indianapolis. So let's take a look at the video.
We're having some technical difficulties. The audio.
It's not. So we're in Indianapolis riding on the Red Line BRT. We brought the leadership from Clayton County, brought a lot of the elected officials.
We came with a purpose, and that purpose is for us to have a better understanding of how BRT could really look and how it can serve our community. You don't always have to recreate the wheel. And what Indigo has done was created a framework that can easily port into any municipality.
It's not just a bus system, it's electric buses that keeps moving through traffic. And I think seeing it is believing it. Economic development, it brings a lot of things that I've seen today that people were telling me that couldn't be done. It's being done here in Indianapolis.
So the one feature that will port exceptionally well into Forest Park is the designated lanes.
It actually flows with traffic, so there's no disruption. The bus keeps moving.
Reading about it is totally different than actually seeing it.
The stations that we've seen with Bus Rapid Transit, it's really a transformative stop. It has a different look. It's like riding a light rail train.
It is absolutely a rapid transit system that just happens to be on a bus, but it works as efficiently as a MARTA train would work. Most importantly though, we have learned that it does indeed spur economic development and revitalization to communities.
This particular node, which is a historic district, a lot of downtown shops, and to see how the transit system interfaces and helps with the infrastructure out here. And the only thing you have to do is get on the bus and get off the bus.
Behind me, I have a fresh line, and I have a mixed-use community right here on the bus line. These are the type of things that we're looking for so we can be innovative and move Clayton County forward.
It has given us an opportunity to see firsthand the type of development that grows around transit. This is exactly the type of development we want to see in Clayton County.
We're standing out front of Goodwill. They've partnered up with a private sector manufacturing company. They said they would not be here if it was not for BRT, and especially from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint, how it helps to recruit companies to the area. New hospital, new grocery stores for these residents in a blighted community that likely have not seen this type of growth in years.
Before coming, I was a little apprehensive about the whole idea of BRT and not rail. But since being here, I have found out the way to go now is BRT.
Looking at their BRT and their rapid bus transit system has just really inspired me to bring this back to you, Clayton County.
We've learned a lot about policy, about operations, about cost, about planning. I think this was beneficial to all.
This BRT system looks like it's going to be a great fit for Clayton County.
We are going to do this in Clayton County with the help of MARTA and every elected official and our citizens.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Stephanie Roberts. I'm the project manager for the SR-54 Rapid project, and I'm going to give you a quick update on what's going on with the SR-54 project. So as many of you know or don't know, the SR-54 Rapid project goes from East Point MARTA Station to Lovejoy. It's approximately a 22-mile corridor, and it connects residential areas with key destinations like the East Point MARTA Station, Fort Gillem area, Clayton State University, South Lake Mall, and downtown Forest Park and Jonesboro. Next slide. So now that, as Tracy had said earlier, that the project is a MARTA Rapid project, we're no longer bound to stay right next to the railroad tracks for this alignment. So that gave us the opportunity to expand our options about where this alignment could go to serve Eastern Clayton County. And what we did was expanded to various other streets that are contiguous to or around the railroad. And we identified some evaluation criteria to help us make these decisions and have MARTA make these decisions. And what this evaluation was to do was to identify potential alignments and to provide insight on what would be the best and most effective service for riders, and to provide what would bring the best economic impacts and development and transit-oriented development, if you've heard that phrase, to the area. Next slide. So what we did is we divided up this 22-mile segment into 6 segments, if you will. So each of the segments were made in such a way that where possible, we looked at alternatives to where the original SR-54 alignment that hugged the current rail corridor are. So this first section here is the original alignment kind of hugged Central Avenue, which if anyone's driven over there, it's a 2-lane highway and doesn't have a lot of residences, just really industrial area. So what we did is we looked at R.N. Martin and Willingham Drive to see if we could pick up any bit more potential riders at that area. And before, I apologize, I didn't purpose this early, but what we're really looking for here is we want to hear if during this process and when you're looking at these alignments, are we missing something? Are there a large population area, disadvantaged or low income housing? Is there, like we know about the logistics area around Fort Gillum? We're just kind of looking to ask you as a community to help us identify activity centers and things that we want MARTA to make sure that are considered when not only looking at what alignment best fits Clayton County, but also potentially also, once we have the alignment, to look at the stations that are going to be. And at the end of this, there will be a survey that was going to come out that's going to ask you your feelings on all this. So as we're going through this, I look at these as ideas and concepts. None of this is set in stone yet by MARTA. That's why we're here talking to you. As Tracy said, this is the highlight or spotlight project, is we're here looking to you as a community to help MARTA make this a better MARTA Rapid for you. So as we go to the next segment, this one's really doesn't have any alternatives to it. There's only one real way to get around the airport. So we're traveling on North Interloop Road to get you around the east side of Hartsfield International. Next slide. And then from there, we're looking at taking the MARTA Rapid into the airport through the international terminal. You'll see two brown lines. One of those represents the current alignment of the roadway, and the other one represents the new alignment that will be happening. There's going to be some roadway changes in the area. So that's what those two lines are. It's not really an alternative, but just showing the current condition and what the future condition will be. Next slide, please. Again, not really a lot of variation here, just taking the alignment down Jonesboro Road / SR-54. You'll see the bump out about midway down, and that's Clayton State University. That was really important to MARTA to make sure that we connect with the university and serve those students there. So next slide, please. So segment 5 is where we really have some variation. There's two good ways to go north-south, whether you maintain on SR-54 or you go over a little bit to the west to Terra Boulevard. So those are our two main north-south alignments that we're looking at. And then connecting that together, we looked at to the north, Mount Zion Road, and then further south, SR-138, and then at the bottom, Smith Street, which again, that's one of our commitments to extend to Jonesboro. So no matter which way we go, the MARTA Rapid will go to Jonesboro, but just how does it get there? So that's something that we're looking for some input on, not to select your favorite per se, but what considerations are there, activity centers and whatnot, that we need to be aware of to make sure that we're connecting everything that needs to be connected. And next slide, please. And this is our last segment. Again, not a lot of variation. This is taking Terra Boulevard. You can see at the top, we're going to make sure that we connect to the Justice Center, like Tracy had said earlier, and then continue down to at the bottom, Lovejoy. And next slide. So as I talked about earlier, there's a lot of evaluation criteria that was developed. It's pretty extensive and takes into account, blue shows existing conditions and land uses, yellow is demographic considerations, and orange are environmental considerations. And as you can look at them, you'll see that there's a little bit of overlap between them. You have population over 65 and residents below poverty and demographics, but you also have population served under existing conditions. So MARTA came up with a lot of evaluation criteria to kind of get a holistic picture to make sure, again, that the routes that they're serving meet the community's needs the best. And that's what we're getting your feedback on to make sure that, MARTA's guesstimations are the correct things that we're looking at. Next slide. So at this time, and again, this is conceptual and MARTA's idea. There's nothing permanent, there's nothing official, but this is the alignment that at this time through the evaluation criteria ranking that we believe is the best to serve the eastern part of Clayton County. So from here, again, there will be a survey that will come out that will ask your opinion and your feelings about what you've just seen. You can also provide comment on the Connect Clayton website, and that information will be provided toward the end of this presentation. So the next steps are, again, we are looking for your comment on what you've heard tonight, and we are going to consider public comment and if necessary, based on public comment and new information, tweak or revise the proposed alignment as needed. Once that's set, the MARTA will then go in using those evaluation criteria to identify station locations. And then we're coming back out to the public again to make sure that we are doing the right thing and getting those station locations right and getting that alignment right. Once everyone's comfortable with that, the alignment will then go to MARTA leadership for their consideration and discussion. And then the final step is to take the final alignment and stations to the MARTA board. Next slide. So a quick timeline. We're here in the orange spot for alignment evaluation. And that'll be complete by the end of next year. After that, the next part is the environmental analysis. That's required by all federal funded projects. And then the exciting stuff happens in 2026, going to engineering and final design. 2028 construction, when you have the shovels in the ground and you see the movement, and then with an opening projected in 2030. And with that, I will turn it over to Content.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie, for that. So now we've wrapped up the presentation portion of tonight's meeting, and we're entering into question and answer. So before I dive into some of the questions, I just want to remind everyone that at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A feature. We'd like you to please utilize that to type in your questions, at which time we will then uplift those questions for a subject matter expert to answer those questions for us. Also, just to reiterate, so Stephanie just spent quite a bit of time on State Route 54 and describing the various segments of the potential alignment. It's really important that you provide feedback to those segments. And so at the end of today's meeting, you will automatically receive a link to answer a series of questions in regards to those alignment segments. If you don't have time to do it this evening, no problems. It will be available via the Connect Clayton website. And then also you'll receive a follow-up email from us in the next day or so that will direct you to that questionnaire as well. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with these questions that have been dropped into the Q&A portion of the tool. So the first question is in regards to dedicated lanes for the bus rapid transit alignments, both South Lake and State Route 54. So can we have a subject matter expert speak to MARTA's goal for projected percentage of dedicated lanes for either or both of the potential transit alignments? Subject matter experts, unmute yourself. Ben, someone call you out. Can you answer that question for us, please?
Yes. Sorry. Yes, I can.
Sure, go ahead.
You muted. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so MARTA's goal is for along each project to have at least 50% dedicated lanes along the alignment. However, we are at the conceptual stage. As the project advances to 30% engineering, the exact percentage and where those dedicated lanes versus mixed traffic lanes are located for each project, South Lake and SR-54 will be determined at that point.
Okay, thanks so much, Ben, for that answer. So our next question is for former president of Clayton State University, as Dr. Hines has uplifted a question in regards to transit development along.
Content, you're on mute.
Am I?
No, I can hear you, Content.
Hello? Can you hear
I
me?
can hear you fine.
Perfect, thank you. So the question is about development along State Route 54, and what are the discussions about transit-oriented development or transit-based development along the alignment?
Or is your speaker off?
If we have an expert that can answer that question.
I'm going to, I believe, do we have Allison Bell on the line today?
We have Audra Tracy, but I don't know if she's a participant or not.
Okay, no problem. I will answer that question, Mr. Hines. As it relates to development, we are very aware that this type of infrastructure does bring economic development. And we are definitely looking at transit supportive land use along this corridor. We have a project underway right now. It's been underway for a couple of years. We have coordinated with all of the jurisdictions along this corridor and given them recommendations on how to change their land use and zonings so that it can be transit friendly. Therefore, when the rapid comes, we are poised and ready for developers to come in and begin development. So that conversation is well underway, and it is brought up normally at any of the jurisdictional briefings with the elected officials. So we will also, in the very near future, revisit those recommendations and coordinate with all of the jurisdiction once more to share the recommendations and to help them along the way to get those recommendations through the planning and approval process.
Thank you, Stacey, for that. We have a question in regards to the current South Lake and State Route 54 alignments and future alignments to ensure that all major destinations within Clayton County have transit access. So this is specific to the International Park in Clayton County, and currently it's located in the city of Jonesboro. There's currently no bus service to the International Park. And so are there any plans in the future with MARTA expansion to provide access to the International Park via either bus service or through the bus rapid transit?
Thank you, Content. This is Stephanie. I can speak only to the SR-54 corridor. That is something that, again, thank you for bringing this up. That is something that we will take back and, make sure that we identify that location and, the nearest bus services that are non-existent bus services, and you take a look again at the employment and, and reconsider that location for potentially being served by the MARTA Rapid. Again, this is the reason that we're here, is to get this kind of information. And I don't know if there's anyone with MARTA that can discuss other bus options.
I am going to ask Corrington, if you have any additional information, please unmute yourself. But I will say that the service planning department at MARTA is very aware that the International Park is a priority for the citizens of Clayton County. There's been a lot of analysis over the years to service that Highway 138 as well as the park. There have been some difficulties around maneuvering in the park I'm aware of, but we will definitely take this back to the service planning group and ensure that it is fresh on their agenda. And I'm gonna ask Quarantin, if you have any additional information, if you could share, that would be great.
Hey, Tracy, can you hear me?
Yes, hear you fine.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm not aware of we're currently looking at with the local service in International Park. I think our routing in Clayton County is pretty clear. You know, we recently added Route 197, 198. So we are going by our commitment to the county. So as part of the local service, we're not looking into this at the moment. But we're always open for suggestions.
Thank you, Quarantin. For the person who submitted that question, I will definitely make sure that is coordinated with the service planning group. So more to come on the International Park and service to the park.
Yes, Ms. Brenda Harrison, a Clayton stakeholder that has been active in this project for quite some time, asked that question, Tracy. So we have a question in regards to funding. And so the penny sales tax was initially earmarked for high capacity transit, with the anticipated technology being commuter rail. So the question is, since it's no longer commuter rail, will that sales tax be able to pay for the bus rapid transit for both alignments?
I will take that question. The sales tax is designated for high capacity transit in Clayton County, and our finance department has that money in escrow, and the money will be allocated to both of these projects, the South Lake BRT as well as the State Route 54 BRT.
Okay, thank you so much, Tracy, for that answer. There's a question in regards to, I guess, the bus rapid transit and how it, I guess, integrates with traffic with freight trains. And so I do know that oftentimes Norfolk Southern trains block cross streets for whatever reason. So is there anyone on the call that can speak directly to how the BRT and its ability to control traffic signalization, and its how will that continue, or how will that work, and possibly not cause any type of delays or interference with the freight trains? I'm paraphrasing, not reading the question exactly, but if there's anyone that can speak to that, thank you.
I can take the answer to that question. So I'm not 100% certain how it is out there today. I would agree that yes, we have the rail blocking cross traffic, and there is a technology where the traffic lights know when there is a train there, and can allow for the through movement, so the movement parallel to the track, so that way that traffic can continue. I'm assuming that's how it is done out there today. If not, that is something that we can look into and investigate. That is something that we can incorporate into the project along with the transit signal prioritization. If we have dedicated lanes, the BRT will actually have their own traffic signal and their own signal phasing to give themselves priority at the intersection, whether there's the train there or not. So there'll actually be a signal movement for the BRT to proceed through an intersection of just for the BRT only, and that signal will only turn on when it knows that there's a BRT bus at that intersection. So what I would imagine here in this situation is if there is a train blocking the cross streets and a BRT bus approaches the intersection, it'll give priority to the bus to proceed through the intersection first, and then allow for the other vehicles in the through movement to continue, through the intersection if there is a train blocking that cross street.
Thank you, Ben, for that. So I'll proceed with another question, and it's in regards to communication. So Ian, I'm going to tee this up for you. So Dr. Hines wants to know about communication moving forward in regards to keeping the Clayton citizens and stakeholders updated on the progress of these projects. As I mentioned, when we kicked off the meeting, that it's been a year since we've been out in the community hosting public forums. So what are the methods of communication moving forward that MARTA plans to execute to ensure that the Clayton citizens continue to be a part of this public conversation regarding bus rapid transit?
Yes, so it is a new mode for MARTA and the region, and we were excited to launch the new branding that will hopefully help associate bus rapid transit with this new service. And we're excited to be out at meetings like this one tonight to help spread the word about the new mode. And we are also working to create more shareable information, like the video that you saw that is posted on the website at connectclayton.com. We are also making sure to have informational components at more community events in Clayton County. So we've hosted a number of MARTA Fresh Market mobile grocery pop-ups this spring, and we will be out at some back to school events over the next month in July. So we are open to hearing more community events that we can be a part of. Again, the website is the main hub for information sharing. And we also have quarterly jurisdictional briefings with our elected officials, but we understand that that information does not always make it out directly to the public. So if there are any other methods, we saw in the poll questions today that folks found out about this meeting through email and social media. We'll continue to use those methods. And if you'd like to drop any additional suggestions in the Q&A, we'll definitely take those into account moving forward. But we look forward to being out in the public, interacting with Clayton residents a whole lot more as these projects develop.
Thanks, Ian. So we have a question in regards to the dedicated lanes for bus rapid transit. And so there's a concern that other cities have downgraded some of their dedicated lanes to shared lanes, and for various reasons. And so the question is, are there any guarantees that MARTA can give that the goal that you have for dedicated lanes will be met, and then that once those lanes are dedicated, that they won't be later downgraded to shared lanes?
Thanks, Content. I'll take a crack at that one. Since we'll be, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have federal partner on both of these projects. They'll be putting up the money or part of the money for us to build these dedicated lanes. So part of that is on the federal side. If we ever downgrade those lanes in the future, we would have to pay back that federal match. And I can't speak for future MARTA, but my expectation is they would not be interested in giving money back to the federal government. So I think that that stands as an implicit guarantee. And additionally, depending on the final design, it's likely that there'll be some kind of separation, potentially curbs, barriers, or something like that that's going to stay in place and that would be difficult to take out.
Thanks, Olin, for answering that question. The next question I'll uplift is in regards to transit-oriented development. And so what role does MARTA play in identifying, I guess, the developers for transit-oriented development that's to come, that is, I guess, initiated or a result of the bus rapid transit? Is it something that is decided upon based on jurisdictions, or do existing property owners have a role in that? Is there anyone that can speak to that question?
I can answer that question. So what MARTA does is MARTA does not have the ability to, they don't own any of the land. They don't have any ability for eminent domain or anything like that. But what MARTA is doing, and starting with the South Lake corridor and will continue for the SR-54 corridor, is the first thing that they're doing is called transit supportive land use. And that's working with jurisdictions along the corridor to work on their local guidance, zoning, and regulations to make it easier for transit-oriented development to happen near station locations. So that's the first step of it, is kind of get the community involved and get the engine on how you can get TOD to happen. And then the next step after that is called transit-oriented development. And that's working more with the cities and the jurisdictions on, what kind of transit-oriented development do you want to bring in? Do you want to have mixed use? But MARTA really can't necessarily, MARTA's kind of the spark for transit-oriented development, bringing that MARTA Express or MARTA Rapid in is kind of the spur of it, but MARTA can't necessarily make TOD happen. That's really the property owners and the jurisdictions coming together and making plans to have TOD developments. And every station is going to have a little bit of a different TOD, genesis, and how, some are going to have stores and restaurants, and some are going to be more residential with maybe a couple mom and pop stores. So they're all going to kind of grow on their own, but MARTA's just kind of the spur, and they're kind of the spark and saying, hey, we're coming, and they're helping the municipalities get ready. But to actually do TOD, that's going to be the jurisdictions and the property owners.
Thanks, Stephanie. Okay, so we have a timing question, and we have an attendee that wants to know, why does it take so long to implement these projects?
I can answer that as well. Unfortunately, it takes a long time. So there's, everyone sees the construction part and it's like, oh, that construction is taking forever. The construction is actually the fast part of the project. The real kind of sausage baking, if you will, is what I explained about for SR-54. It's that even before you get to that evaluation criteria, you have to, there's studies like what kind of mode of transportation do you have to have, and there's even a bigger field of alternatives that occurred with both South Lake and the SR-54 corridors, that they were, in the teens of original alternatives, and then you whittle that down, and then you have another bunch of alternatives, and then you kind of do more evaluation, and you whittle that down, and then you do another evaluation, and you whittle that down. And unfortunately, it's just a part of the federal process. It's how it works. And then we get to the point, where SR-54 is at now. We come to the public with potential alignments. And then you get yourself to where the South Lake project is now, is you have an alignment and you have the stations. It still takes a long time because you're still kind of tweaking things to make sure that you can get that federal money that you need and you want. So that takes a little bit more time to make those tweaks. And then you apply to the federal government to get their money. Anytime you go to the federal government, that takes time too, to get that money. So as you're doing that, we also have environmental analysis. And it's quite detailed. For example, for the South Lake corridor, it took 9 months to do the archaeological evaluation because of Georgia regulations. You have to do shovel tests every so often along every quarter mile along the roadway. It's quite involved. And when you have a corridor the length of South Lake, it takes some time. And then you have to take those documents and put them into another report. And then from there you go into, and the engineers get to play, and the engineers like to play and then tweak things and design things as well. So you get to that conceptual design, to the 30% that Olin had talked about earlier. And then from there, go to final design. Again, that takes some more time. That's when you're really making the final project. And then you get to construction. So, you know, on average, it takes a couple of years to go from, hey, we're going to do this thing, to being like, hey, it's going to take 4 years to get to, hey, here's our alignment, here's our stations. And it's going to take another 2 years to do your environmental and do your engineering. And then you get to the fun part of construction. And, you know, it's understandable why people are saying, why does it take so long? And unfortunately, that's just the nature of what we're doing. We're trying to do it faster, as fast as we can, I promise.
Yeah.
That is so true. And I appreciate your answer, Stephanie, and the details. I would like to share with all of our friends in Clayton County. We know it takes a long time. I ask myself that question every day. Why does it take so long? And Stephanie actually nailed it. But to everyone on this call, I believe Clayton should consider themselves ahead of the game, because if you recall in our presentation, we outlined to you all of the areas that would get MARTA Rapid. And Clayton is the second one on the list. Summer Hill, then Clayton. Now you have Clifton Corridor, Georgia 400, you have all of these to follow. And we have been in the planning and the environmental analysis for Georgia 400 and Clifton Corridor for almost a decade before Clayton County even joined the MARTA service area. So we are going as fast as we can, believe me. If it were not so, we would tell you. We're going as fast as we can. And I think Clayton should be proud to say that you're going to be number 2 on the list, right behind Summer Hill. So you are ahead of the game, ahead of Georgia 400, and definitely ahead of Clifton Corridor, even though those projects have been around for a decade ahead of Clayton County. Thank you.
We have a few more questions, and one question is in regards to a municipality that will not be currently touched by the current BRT alignment, and so that's Rex, the city of Rex. So is there anyone that can speak to any possibilities of BRT making its way to servicing the city of Rex? Sometime in the future. Anyone?
So, sorry, Content, I couldn't find my mute button. We will take that into consideration and take it back. That this meeting is about finding additional potential destinations. So the team will take it back and continue the analysis and look at it and run it against the criteria.
Thanks, Olin, for that. And so I know there's a gentleman, Mr. Bell, he's asked this question several times in the Q&A, and it's in regards to rail, commuter rail, and will it come after BRT, or is it off the table? Anyone at MARTA that can speak to that?
So I'll tee this up and then hand it over to Ian for the final answer. One of the things that we talked a lot about in designing the BRT is when we design the BRT, we want to design it so that it does not preclude a future upgrade to rail as Clayton builds population and transit if rail is warranted in the future in terms of ridership projections. We want to make sure that we can come back through and upgrade our corridor. So that what that means is the engineers are being very careful to make sure they don't introduce any steep hills or grades that rail couldn't go up in the future, and make sure that we have the envelope that we're not building something so tight up against an existing building that we can't do rail in the future.
Thanks, Owen. And I will just add that the same issues that have come up in some previous meetings about commuter rail and the switch to BRT are still applicable, which are challenges with right-of-way access, environmental issues, and things that would impact some historical resources across the county. So those are still applicable here, and unless those things change, including a significant source of additional funding, then rail would continue to be infeasible. But bus rapid transit allows us to deliver our commitment to high capacity transit for Clayton County. And so that is the option that we are pursuing at this time.
There's a question in regards to pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure improvements along the alignment. And the question is, will MARTA work with the county and the jurisdictions to invest in or make improvements to these infrastructures, pedestrian and bicycle infrastructures, as we move forward with implementing the MARTA Rapid?
Thanks, Content. I'll go ahead and take a crack at that one. And Tracy, if I say something
I can
wrong.
take that one. One of the benefits of MARTA Rapid is the dedicated stations. And so because we know where the stations are going to be, that can be part of the planning that local communities can do in terms of increasing the network of bicycle and pedestrian facilities to the MARTA Rapid stations. So that would cover that in terms of increasing that investment and improving on their existing infrastructure to bring more passengers to the MARTA Rapid stations. Along the rest of the alignment, I know the improvements, looking to, if we are widening the roadway in order to add a BRT lane, I think that's where we would add sidewalk, and we'll look to see how bicycle infrastructure can work with the BRT lanes. But in terms of expanding beyond, in the community, away from the BRT, that is going to be up to the community. But again, because we have this project, because we have the dedicated stations, that can certainly be a catalyst for looking at that, quarter-mile walking distance around, or half-mile walking distance, or maybe a 10-minute bike distance, whatever distance you want to look at, and see where these communities can then target that investment to provide that connectivity.
Great, thanks, Ben. Great job, team, with answering these questions. And so the last one that I see here is in regards to workforce development, and regards to how MARTA anticipates ensuring that Clayton County residents can get jobs to advance these projects. And so I'll take a stab at that, but then also ask our virtual producer to go to the next slide that will reinforce my response. So MARTA is committed to, the next slide, please, is committed to providing Clayton County residents job opportunities to work with MARTA, but then also providing small businesses, minority businesses, an opportunity to work with MARTA to advance these projects, particularly with construction. So as far as job and hiring opportunities are concerned, here are a list of some current hiring events that MARTA is participating in that they encouraged us to introduce in order to increase participation for anyone that's interested in working with MARTA. So here are some immediate opportunities. As the projects advance over the years, over the next couple of months and years, MARTA will continue to communicate out to the Clayton citizens on how they can engage for hiring opportunities, as well as opportunities to work with MARTA to be a part of the construction process. So stay tuned. And so as far as I can see, we have answered all of the questions, unless there's some more you want to go ahead to advance. But I just want to communicate again the ways in which you can continue to be involved and stay informed with this planning process. So the previous slide shows our access to our current project website, which is connectclayton.com. If you go to that website, you'll see that it contains information about all of the expansion projects that we listed today, along with others. In addition to that, as we mentioned earlier in the program, that following this meeting, we will launch a survey, which will allow you to provide us some feedback on the alignment segments for State Route 54. Again, if you are unable to take the survey immediately, you can access it again through connectclayton.com starting tomorrow, as well as you will receive a follow-up email from us thanking you for the participation, which will include a link to the presentation itself. Also a link to the Zoom recordings. If you would like to revisit it and hear the Q&A portion again. And see those videos, see the video of the bus rapid transit as well. So I'm going to take one last look at the questions, and it looks as though we've answered all of the ones this evening. If no other questions are advanced at this time, I'd like to once again, on behalf of MARTA, thank the Clayton citizens and stakeholders for their participation in this meeting. Please stay tuned by logging on to connectclayton.com for further information about this project. And we thank you so much for being dedicated and committed to this planning initiative. And just like we are very excited to see these projects move to the next phase of work. And in the next few years, they will be very strong and popular in Clayton County. And so again, thank you so much for your time. Be safe this evening. Enjoy your families, and good night.